Hi everyone! Welcome to our very late edition of the vlog. It's already Monday and yeah, here it goes. Okay, so we had some very interesting questions from last time, primarily about music and where we think musicality is going, if we think that dancing tango to non-tango music makes it still tango, and sort of where the community is going and how the dance is going to develop in the future. So thank you for those questions. I think, Ivan, you had an idea about sort of
What?
talking about the foreign to Argentine
To answer that question,
like in terms of the like music.
in terms of
He
the
had a good
music,
analogy with music and tango.
music. Okay, the analogy will be, so then we can
Close the foreign
the
Argentinian
foreign
thing.
Argentine thing. That is just some open discussion. Being the Argentinian, I would say that the example it would be, let's say, a good artist, a singer, an actor, or whatever. Let's say we stay with the singer. It doesn't matter what's the nationality of the singer. If he's good, you like it. It will touch you somehow. You will appreciate how they sing, how whatever it sounds like. If it sounds Spanish, if it sounds French, English, it doesn't matter. If the voice and this person, like the expression, like touches you, you feel something, and you like it. That's pretty much all that you need. So then it doesn't really matter where they're from. And obviously, yes, us as Argentinians, we've been doing it, let's say, longer, and it comes from, let's say, our country, even if it comes from different, how do you say, immigrants. And yes, we can say, let's say, they are like the top, say, 5 couples. They are mostly Argentinian. Because again, how many dancers in Argentina they actually dance tango as a profession is
the percentage is greater than anywhere else, really.
Anywhere else. So yes, you could say yes, there are more Argentinians.
The pool is bigger, right, to begin with.
But that doesn't mean that there are no non-Argentinians that are really good dancers, and that was pretty much the whole point about this, to also respect that there are other dancers that they don't need to be Argentinians to be really good dancers.
In terms of the music and sort of the development of the music and so on, in my opinion, I think tango is still evolving, in the sense that there was like a golden age in the 1940s, and pretty much everything movement-wise that we know today was already happening there. What we're doing today is maybe just more extreme positions, like more open colgadas, volcadas, off axis positions, and so on. But everything that we are doing today already existed in the 1940s. And musically, however, I think there's still room for more evolution. And we had Piazzolla in the 60s and the 70s, and then we had electronica in the 90s. So people are still composing tango. They're not doing it at a rate, unfortunately, that the dancing is happening. So music is a little bit like lagging, because just there's not as many people who are composing and playing tango music as there are people who are dancing it. And I really hope that there is consumption of modern tango music, and that people invest in making music. I know that there are
a few
orchestras in the US
and in
Argentina also that are creating music now, and they deserve to be supported, and hopefully more music will be written, and whether it's sort of like a fusion, like Piazzolla did a little bit with jazz, or it's looking back and trying to sort of recreate these 1940s sounds. I'm all for new music happening.
And some of the people were asking also, it's like, would it be considered tango if you dance non-tango music, dancing any other thing? and then we cannot understand why that happens. Understand, like, you know.
We can understand why that happens.
Yes. I didn't say that. Yes, me entienden. And it have to do because, you know, like, there are obviously different cultures that they have different, you know, traditional music or whatever. Or the new generation of people, they're, you know, younger people, that they mostly what they listen to, and this happens everywhere, is like pop, you know, like all these, you know, famous songs or whatever that you hear.
Modern music,
like,
composed now.
You know, composed now. So it's more likely that obviously if you want to attract younger people, that's type of the music that somehow they feel a little more identified or connected to. And I think there is nothing wrong about it, you know, like, as soon as on the end, once we attract them and, you know, they can dance to the music, and we can introduce tango to it, and then we can introduce more of the traditional tango, then with time, trust me, they will also appreciate it.
Yeah.
And they will, you know, understand where it comes from. And
I mean, musical taste is developed, it's acquired, just the same way that movement taste is acquired. I don't know, for me, when I first started seeing tango, I was really impressed by like show tango, because you saw all these big movements, and I could only understand the big movements. You know, they're like the kicks and the drops and the drama, and that's what attracted me initially. But then as I sort of acquired my tango taste, I started to appreciate more and more and more subtle things about movement, the little things. And then I started to see that actually maybe these big things were exaggerations, and the small things I appreciated more. So I think maybe that's also what happens with the music. People come listening to, I don't know, rap or hip hop or some like Bruno Mars or whatever. They come and they dance some tango movement to it. And then little by little, they acquire the taste for the traditional tango music. And then they appreciate it more. So whatever makes our community grow, whatever makes us more connected to each other, whatever makes us appreciate more, is a great thing. So if that means that the process is a little bit longer, fine. The really important thing is to not lose touch with the roots, and to, as teachers, to actually show people videos of people dancing from the past, play music from the past as a part of this introduction, and then hopefully we can retain some of the roots, because without the roots it's really hard to be modern. All the good, you know, modern dancers of tango that I'm aware of, they all have traditional techniques. So you need to dig down to grow up like a tree. Make the roots to make the branches. Yeah.
What else do you have?
So that was the sort of the question from the Argentine versus. The next question was from the connection videos, and it was about, we were talking about energy use and how using the same level of energy is a part of making the connection work. And somebody said, yeah, but sometimes people put in so little energy that actually I can't move. Well, let's refine this whole energy idea with the connection. There is energy that the leader is giving to you, and then there is energy that is required for movement. And sometimes what the leader is giving you is insufficient for the movement. So, for example, if I only walk back at like a normal speed, I require X energy. But if in that speed now there's an added an ocho, while I'm pivoting, I need X times 2. Right? So even if my leader doesn't give me this X times 2, I know what my requirement is to maintain the pace of the movement. So I will increase my energy level to make the movement happen.
Again, ideally you want that the leader is aware of that, but nobody's perfect. So, and if you still want to dance with that person and make that timing and feel free that you can actually move with them and you don't depend completely on them to give you the entire information, even if ideally that would be nice, you still can make the movement yourself. Yes.
So yeah, it's true. Sometimes matching the leader's energy is just not enough for you to accomplish the movement. If that's the case, you should always put in the energy that you require for the movement. So in like we have a hierarchy of needs or a hierarchy of energies. always the base energy is the energy required for the movement. After that is meeting the energy that the leader is producing for you or requiring of you. And then a related question was about sort of what happens with the embrace when you match energies. And if this connection is happening through the whole body, then what is interesting is that the emphasis on the embrace lessens in terms of the embrace being a tool. So if the focus is only on the embrace becomes like a tool. Like, I need a firm embrace because I use it for many different things. I use it to tell the person to rotate. I use it to tell the person to stop. I contain them with my embrace. I push them with my embrace.
Or to do my ochos,
to do my
bolero,
etc. So in the way that we conceive of connection, where we pay attention to the axis and we pay attention to the whole body, our embrace, the quality of our embrace is actually much more dependent on the position of our feet. So for example, if I'm too far away from my partner and my axis is too far forward, then yes, my embrace will start to kind of press down on him because I'm at the edge of my axis. I can't really hold myself
we don't
up.
do.
So this is not something that we do. Because we are more straight in our axis, it's the position of our legs that actually allows our embrace to be soft. So if you're having problems with your embrace, if you have a lot of tension or discomfort in your embrace, the problem is usually not your embrace. The problem is what you're doing with your legs and how you're relating with your axis to your partner. So once you fix the attention and the axis, your embrace becomes very soft. It's like a transmitter rather than a tool. It has a different function.
And soft, it doesn't mean disconnected.
Yeah, it just means that it's flexible and you're not pushing at the person to help yourself move, which is really, really important. So I think that takes care of the questions.
Yeah. Should we talk about...
Yeah, so today what we wanted to talk about was we talked about connection, and connection for us is important for communication because in the way that we think about our technique, communication is really, really, really important. But before we can talk about our technique, which is the topic of today,
more.
I think we should talk a little bit about the distinction between technique and style.
Okay.
Because
technique
sometimes
style.
there's some
technique and style is being,
technique versus style.
Technique is being confused by style. For example, today I decided to wear this nice, at least I think it's nice, you might think otherwise, this sweater, but that doesn't mean that I need this sweater to dance tango, to exercise, let's say, whatever, right? So sometimes people, when they teach their technique, they teach what they think that is necessary to accomplish something, but it's not really necessary. An example, sometimes stepping with the toes or stepping with the heel, for some people it's a technical thing. Oh no, with the toes, that's my technique. Yeah,
correct technique for tango step is to always step with the toes.
Step with the toes, right? And for the other ones, no, you step with the heel. The other ones, you step flat. For us, we don't consider that's a technical point. That's a choice. Like I just trying to give this example. Today I decided to put this, but do I really need this to exercise? I could use if it's cold, or I don't have to use if I'm warm enough or whatever, right? So for us, a technical thing, it would be like, I don't care how you land, if it's on your toe, your heel, or flat. The technical point, it will be, and there's something more generalized in a way, and something that is necessary. That is that you have to use your standing leg to push towards the ground that you're standing on, and move yourself into the next leg. So you're from one leg into the next leg. Your job is to do that. To use one leg, you push yourself so there is some energy when you move. The other person can feel that there is some energy and they move with you, and then you arrive on one leg. That's the necessary. Obviously, there are more efficient and less efficient way to do it. Now, you choose to bend your knees more, to use your ankles more, to land with the toe, with the heel, to turn in your legs, to keep your hips on the back, to keep the hips forward. There are some things like they could be stylistically a choice, but it's not necessarily like technically something that you need to do.
And so this distinction between technique and style, technique being something that's necessary to make the movement efficient, and style being something that's optional in terms of making the movement look in a certain way or have a certain characteristic, certain visual characteristic. This is really, really important to distinguish, because if we confuse style and technique, then we are confusing people when we teach them. Because if I come to a town and I say, you only always walk with your toes, and you only always project, and then you move your axis, and I have my students practice this for 2 hours, or 3 days, or whatever, however long I'm there, they're like, oh yes, okay, project. And then I move my axis. And then somebody else comes and they say, actually, no, you don't first project and then you move your axis. You are moving your axis and your free leg at the same time.
And you arrive on your heel.
And you arrive on the flat and you arrive right on top of your axis immediately. Visually, those things look super, super, super different. But technically, actually, they're the same. Yeah. In both of these instances, you're using your standing leg. In one case, you move the free leg first. In the other case, you move your axis first. It's just a question of coordination. So even though technically the movement should be executed the same way, meaning using the standing leg to move the whole body, the coordination of the movement is different. Therefore, it looks different. The styling of it is different. But if you don't explain this to people kind of like this, in this way, they get super confused. They're like, well, this teacher told me I should always project, and then this other teacher comes and tells me I should move my axis. People don't know which is correct. And actually, you can't do either or. Yeah. Because in reality, you do both. Yeah. The question is just when. So when, it's like...
and why do you
and why do you want to do it? So for example, if I always project and then I use my axis, then I move my axis, I can't move fast.
I don't know anybody can do that.
It's really silly. It just looks like a clown movement. It doesn't work. So if I need to move fast, it's my axis that needs to
walking
move.
Fast. You
walking
can
fast,
like
for example.
Stay on your toes and turns and do it like that, and it will look fast.
Right, yes. But if I need to really displace, I have to move my axis. But for example, if if I want to, let's say, show the elegance of my foot, and I want to show the extension of my leg to the front and how I'm carving the space for, let's say, a parada, moving my axis completely first doesn't accomplish that, because it shows the body movement and not the leg. So what you do is a question of practicality and need. What do I need to show?
Or I need to show, or you want to show, or how do you want to express yourself, and that's how it comes out.
Yes.
But if you learn, like, let's say, in a box, like this is what you're supposed to do, and this is the only way to do it, you're restricting,
limiting yourself,
and limiting yourself of how you can express yourself.
Yeah.
And how, and also who you can dance with, because this happens all the time. The salon people dance like this, the milonguero dance like this, the tango nuevo like this, the stage like that, or whatever styles. And then if technically they don't do what you consider technique the same, then you're like, oh, I cannot dance with these people
because they use a different technique.
They use a different technique.
No,
like,
they're just shaping their movement in a different way.
Yeah.
So why are we talking about this, and why is this important? Because actually, this is what happened to us when we were learning. We were taking a lot of classes from different people, and we were getting different information and super conflicting information. I mean,
like completely opposite.
Completely opposite. And teachers used to really hate me because my mind just doesn't work with incongruities. Like, I can't handle information that I see is inconsistent. And I asked a lot of questions. I was really, really annoying in class. They really, really hated me. But we started to understand, okay, so these people are saying this thing. they're great dancers. These other people are saying this other thing. It's completely diametrically opposed, and they're also great dancers. Both of these couples accomplish their goal. Now, why are we focusing on what's different?
If they're both good.
It doesn't work.
Obviously, both of them are good, doing something good. So let's look at what actually is the same
Between what they're saying and what they're saying.
What they're saying.
Instead of looking at, okay, what is different? The difference is not so interesting. It's the common denominators,
the underneath of it.
The underneath of it that makes it work. And so we spent a lot of time. So like our process was like this, basically. We would take a class and we would get a correction, like a step here instead of here. And then we would go home and we'd be like, okay.
No. In that moment we were like, oh, so why step here?
Yeah.
And depend on the
teacher, we would get a different response. But usually the response is, well, because it works better. But we oftentimes didn't have like a logical or consistent or a systemic answer. We would get like an incidental, like for that particular instance, correction.
For this it's
like
for
this.
The back ocho, you do it like this.
But for this, it's kind of like this.
For this back sacada, no, it's different. You do something else.
And so we would go home and then we would literally try to apply that correction into every single instance of a movement that would be in the same group of movements.
So for example, if they taught us how to do the back ocho, we try to find on all of our dancing, all the elements that we had it, where there is a back ocho, right? And to see if we still doing the same thing. And a back ocho, you have it in the beginning of a boleo, in the beginning of a back sacada, in the beginning of a turn, and the beginning of an enganche. I mean, there is everywhere, right?
Actually, we didn't realize that at the beginning.
No.
In the beginning, we would just try to, okay, where does Sara do this kind of similar thing like this back ocho? And then over time, we realized that actually the back ocho is the back ocho, whether it's in the shape of a back sacada or in the shape of a boleo or in the shape of a gancho or whatever. We started to recognize that actually in terms of movement, there's very few movements, right? So we could sort of start to classify what types of movement we had. And then we would apply this correction to that particular type of movement. And where this correction actually fixed sort of in every instance the problems we were having, then that correction would be a causation. It would be like a causal correction. But many times that correction was just a correlation. It was related, so it was related to the problem, but it wasn't the source of the problem. Correcting that particular thing also corrected something else that maybe we didn't pay attention to. So we started like digging down and down and down and down and trying to figure out how to classify, how to parse out, how to sort of systematize what we were doing. And basically we went down into classes of movement. Then we were like, okay, so it's just about linear and circular movement. Okay, there's certain geometries in place. And then we were like, okay, even lower under that, like when we got all the way to the bottom, we realized that everything is just about direction and energy. And that's sort of...
And try to understand like why we did this process. For us, we really like all the different styles and all these people that they dance so differently. And it was hard sometimes to pick, oh, I want to dance like this only. And then it's like, oh, but that guy does this so differently, but I want to do that too. And I want to do that too. But then we felt like we have to change all the time. Like, it felt like you have to start from the beginning again every time you went to a class. And it's like...
Because like the technique was different.
The technique was different. I was like, oh my God. And thank God I'm already, or before Tango I was already like a dancer, a trained dancer. And yes, I could pick up things really quickly.
Really quickly.
But even though it was super confusing, we finished 1 hour with these guys like, only bend your knees more. No, bend more, the arm it should be here. Let's say for some technical thing. I do that all the time. I go to this like, oh, you're bending your knees too much. Straight your legs and your arm should be here. I'm like, and then all of these things, we was like, oh my God, this will never learn Tango. It will take us forever. And how did I do? I want to do that movement and this other, and they're so conflicted. So like, okay, So we need to try to understand what all these people are saying, and maybe, you know, they are the same, and there is a lot of things that they are related the same. So because of that we wanted to learn everything and be able to do
to have
everything.
as few limits as possible on the types of movement we could do and the kind of music we would like to dance.
And mostly because when we were dancing, we also would work with different companies. And working with different companies are really particular sometimes of the particular style that they want you to do. And we used to work, let's say, at the same time in two different companies that they were super traditional, but like more traditional than even you have seen now. It's like super old traditional. And then a show that is kind of like more modern, like kind of like doing ballet stuff and tricks and stuff like that. So for us to be able to work on two companies that are really, really, really different, you know, stylistically, and for some people it will be technically, for us it was like, you know, obviously we have to be able to do this. I cannot just, you know, level myself that, oh, I can only do this style, sorry, I cannot work there. Because on the end, if I think of, on terms of work too, like it's no convenience. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can only teach you this, or I can only dance this particular thing. It's like, on the end, it's like, we just want to dance. We want to express ourselves
as fully as possible.
And this is why, because the music is telling me something different. Pugliese tell me something different from what D'Arienzo tell me, and from Di Sarli, from Biaggi, and whatever. So why I'm going to dance everything the same if the music is saying something different?
Yeah. So so kind of like bringing everything down to the lowest common denominator, and then understanding it allowed us to really systematize how we were thinking about tango, and it allows us to solve problems that maybe we hadn't personally encountered.
Yeah.
So for example, for us to copy a step is really, really simple. We don't have to, for example, our rehearsal is not practicing steps or repeating and repeating and repeating to make a step work. Because when we see it, we understand how it works. We don't need to practice for that. When we practice other type of things like expression or combination or music or something else that we find interesting. It's making a lot of noise, really.
Sorry, I need to get this.
So basically, making this distinction between technique and style for us personally has been super, super, super useful, because it almost like it lets you see underneath the machine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you can see the clockwork. And it doesn't matter then if the clock is gilded or it's simple or it has a cuckoo bird or it has a little dancing dolls on it. What you see underneath is the skeleton, and then you put on top whatever kind of style that you want to express in the moment with whatever it is that you're listening to.
And again, and why this is like this, and if you think about it in a really logical way, is like we have two arms, two legs, a torso, let's say hips, and a head, let's say for saying in a silly way, and then you know, nobody can fly so far, so you have to interact with the ground. Beyond that, and the restriction of the embrace. So you try to maintain the embrace, close, open, or whatever.
It doesn't matter where,
just it doesn't matter where.
Unbroken, let's say.
That's the only restriction that you really have. And then it's like express yourself whatever you want with this music. So with those
parameters that are narrow.
They're exactly. It's like what else is there in a way? I mean, like that's pretty much it. So it's like it's a logical way to think about it.
Yeah. So once we understood this distinction between technique and style, we really worked on consolidating our technique. And when we teach our technique, we're actually just describing in a very precise way the three different things. The first thing is the mechanic of the body. So how does the body behave in linear and circular movements?
And this is before you even think of embracing anybody. It's like this have to do with
individual.
yourself. Personal, your personal individual technique that for men and women, for us, it's the same.
So, like, we don't really teach follower technique classes and leader technique classes because there's no distinction.
No.
The body is the body; it moves, and there's more efficient and less efficient movement.
Yeah.
So we really try to study and try to work.
Again, if we were talking about the underneath of it, the efficient way. If you think about the style, obviously the style of the woman and men, it will be different, right? Yeah. But we're not talking about style.
We're talking about how the body moves, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing that we think about in technique is the geometry between the two bodies. So once you understand what each body does individually, then you have different types of geometries, whether you're walking in a line, whether you're walking outside partner position, and if you're turning, and then if you're turning around a common center, or if you're turning around a single axis of a person. Those are sort of like the main groupings of the type of geometries that we understood were happening. And you kind of understand at the end that it's all like the same thing. That there's actually relatively little technique in tango. What is really complex about it is that it all has to be there simultaneously for a person to be consistent and efficient.
And then on top of it, you can stylize that in so many different ways that's what makes it even more complex. And then how you choose the music and etc.
So those are the two things: body mechanic, and then the second thing is the geometry and the partnership. The third thing is the dynamic. A dynamic for us is like the use of energy in movement, meaning acceleration, deceleration, slow motion, all of these things that require us to change the density of our bodies, to be able to
accomplish different timings.
Yeah, to be able to store energy, to have explosive timings, to release energy, to contain energy, all of these different things. So these are like three sort of layers that all work together to make our technique work. And sometimes when we teach, people are like, well, can I dance with your technique with other people? Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like a really interesting question, because for us there are no conventions. Actually, maybe there's only one convention, that the follower changes weight when the leader leads it, and what else? And that the follower matches the energy and direction of the leader.
That's all.
That's it. So we actually have almost something that you have to learn. So in my experience, or in our experience, thinking about tango, how we think about technically, really facilitates us to dance with different people, because we're not focusing on these stylistic cues to know what to do. We pay attention to other things. It really helps us dance with everybody across the board, because in its essence, what we're describing is movement, and we're describing it in the most natural and intuitive and instinctive way.
Which is possible. Something that many of the good dancers, they do regardless what they explain. Because it's, again, if you have two legs in the ground, you have an embrace and you have to interact with another person, it's more likely that you have to do something really similar. Like, and we're talking about tango, but we could be talking about any other dance, or even some sports, that at least what you're doing with your body, in relationship to the floor, is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. So this is why this whole thing, your technique, is always funny. It's almost like it's just movement technique. We just happen to understand it in a cohesive, holistic way, and we explain it consistently as a closed system. So it's just ours in the way that we explain it. We didn't decide that that's what it should be. It comes from observation and experience.
And wanting to get better and be able to do the different styles and different ways of moving, and a lot of experience.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much the difference between technique and style. maybe today we don't have really time to go into
just to be, I mean, more precise about how is actually our lead and follow. That's actually what we want to go for, right?
Yeah, I mean, we really want to talk about the leading and following part of what we do, because
that's what makes how we dance, or these different ideas. Why we, I mean, on the end, why help us to understand all those different things that we did to try to figure out from all the different teachers that we had it. He helped us to get to lead and follow how we work now.
Or maybe we lead and follow how we work now because we want to do all these unlimited things. I don't know. It's chicken or the egg. I'm not sure.
It's related anyway.
But I guess the last piece that's missing is the lead and follow component of the technique that we use. But maybe we'll do that in the next video.
Yeah, so we have more time for that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we've already been talking for like 35 minutes, so I think it's over.
It's plenty. So anyway, I hope you like it. We wait for some comments, subscribe, and wait for our next video next week, which will be in...
it will come from France.
France.
So thank you so much for watching this channel, and please ask us questions. We're super, super happy to engage with you.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Bye.